I've never been a hardcore tournament player, but I do occasionally like to try my hands against some of the better players in the community. So last weekend I decided to join the North American Flash Tournament run by FG Pacopox, and this was a Flash tournament held on Saturday, I believe. And it was a fairly standard tournament, Flash tournament, basically just show up like a couple minutes before your game and go through the bracket and try to win. And these things are organized very efficiently, very quickly. If you win all your games, you'll usually win the tournament in about, I don't know, 2-3 hours. This was my first game in the tournament, Ostrogoths versus Ostrogoths. I'm playing the Ostrogoths, and my opponent, Flankzilla, is also playing the Ostrogoths. And what you might notice from competitive play on Total War Attila is that there's a very distinct metagame evolving around the Germanic factions. Now, normally, people would probably be up in arms this early in a Total War game saying that the balance is all screwed up. It's terrible. Shogun 2's balance at the beginning of Shogun 2 was pretty bad, and Rome 2 pretty similar. There were some serious balance issues to be addressed. It's not as bad now, and the reason for that is that Attila is really focused around a ton of Germanic factions. Like, a lot of the factions in the game, the Alans, the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, bunch of other factions all have very similar rosters with only a couple of unique units. Pretty much every Germanic faction has access to the Germanic Horsemen, which are without a doubt the most cost-effective cav unit in the game. When you give them gold chevrons, they're completely ridiculous. So, if you haven't been following Total War Attila competitive at all, I'm going to explain to you what the metagame is and why it's so good. What you've seen a lot is a build that's kind of similar to this, and this isn't quite the meta, but it's 2 or 3 pikes to ward off enemy cavalry from coming up your center. It's really important to prevent cav from charging your infantry, as it has been in every Total War game except Rome 2, but it's very, very important in this game because cav will completely destroy infantry units off the charge, whether you're a melee cav or whether you're a shot cav. It doesn't really matter. If there's a max 8 cav rule, you're going to be bringing max 8 cav unit, or you're going to be bringing 8 cav units. If there's a max 6 cav rule, you're going to be bringing 6 cav units. You're always going to be bringing the maximum amount of cavalry you can because it's so effing good. It's so ridiculous. Germanic horsemen are going to be the cav units you see from Germanic factions almost every time. Occasionally you'll see noble Germanic horsemen, but when you chevron up, let's just put it into slow motion real quick. When you shove up Germanic horsemen, they get just ridiculous stats. 58 melee attack. The only thing that's bad about this unit is its morale. 47 morale, not very good, but they're going to be winning a ton of the engagements they go into. They have 247 health, very tanky. That's all very, very nice from them. A main line of 4 or 5 or 6 normal tanky swords. All the swords in this game don't cost a lot except for like the Thracian Oathsworn and some of the shock infantry units. Most of the swords are very cheap, like 620 talents for the Gothic Palatine Defectors or the Gothic Warband. You'll be seeing them a lot as well, just to help you win an infantry engagement when it finally does occur. And a Cav General. So in this game, I brought the Royal Siones as my general. My opponent, Flankzilla, also brought the Royal Siones. He has 2 Gothic Lancers and 2 Noble Germanic Horsemen. One problem with his build that I noticed right off the bat is that he elected to bring 2 Noble Germanic Horsemen and 2 Gothic Lancers. Now, Gothic Lancers in and of themselves are not bad, but they will get wrecked by Gothic or by Germanic Horsemen. So, the shot cav in general, like I said, is inferior to melee cavalry, so sometimes you don't really want to bring those. And he didn't bring the maximum amount of cav. This was a max 8 cav tournament, and he didn't bring that. So that is a problem with his build. When you have a cav disadvantage in Attila, you are often in trouble. Another mistake my opponent has made is he has Germanic Archers with 200 range. These are the other important aspect of the metagame at the moment. You'll often see a lot of tournament players bring 3 or 4 of those 200 range archers, and if he was skirmishing appropriately, he would be able to destroy me in a skirmish fight, because Germanic Archers 200 range, my 150 range crossbows cannot deal with that at all. He could just kite me to death, skirmish down all my crossbowmen, and then I lose all my range units, which is a problem. He is letting me just shoot his archers at the moment, and he's not at max range for the Germanic Archers. So that's definitely a mistake from him. I'm going to be able to take a lot of his skirmishers off the field before we actually enter melee combat. Now, out on the flanks, I have 3 Germanic Horsemen on one flank, actually 4 on this side, backed up maybe by my Royal Sione. Actually, Royal Sione is over on the other side, and then I have 2 Germanic Horsemen over here. Looking at the main line builds for each of the players, I've got 5 Gothic Palatine Defectors. My opponent, Flankzilla, has brought Germanic Band and another Germanic Warband, some Gothic Palatine defectors. He brought more an eclectic mix of infantry units. So, let's get into it here. Cav fight is going to start now. Germanic Horsemen coming up, going to destroy the Gothic Lancers. They will do better on the charge, the Gothic Lancers, but as soon as the charge is over, they're going to get wrecked. Missed micro from myself over here. I actually didn't get the charge on my Cav unit at all. It's a great thing that Cav is very, very tanky in Attila, because previously, if this was Shogun 2 or Rome 2, not getting the Cav charge with your cavalry would be disastrous. It's not a massive deal here. Would prefer to get the Cav charge, of course, but he's not going to be able to just completely rout it off the field right off the bat. You can see some of my crosswomen have decided to start targeting the Royal Sioni General. This is pretty important. I can do a lot of damage here. Just doing HP damage to his gen is going to be really important later on in the battle once they enter melee combat with some of my Cav. If I can just whittle them down, do some damage to them, the sooner they die, the better it is for me. And morale penalty from losing the gen in this game is very high. It's often game losing. So if I manage to kill that gen, that'll be really, really good for me. Over on the other side, Cav fight is going on in earnest. He's actually doing a good job over here with the Germanic Archers shooting into my Cav units. It's very important. It can often turn a cavalry fight in your favor. So he's doing a good job there. Going to try to back up with the Pikemen. Now, Pikemen are very useful in Attila, but they aren't super responsive. It's kind of like Rome 2. They don't always respond super well to commands. They're not great in a Cav fight because you can't really move them up into enemy Cav units very easily. So they're just kind of going to drop their pikes and not do a whole lot there. But they are very good at deterring cavalry from coming up the center, like I said earlier. Over on this side, Cav fight is kind of a wash at the moment. He did get some Gothic Warband in there, and he is shooting into the flanks of my Germanic Horsemen. That will do a lot of damage. In the center here, I'm doing quite well, and actually my crosswomen have made quite an impact on the battle so far. 92 kills for one, 131 for the other. Micro mistake there to kind of let them get stabbed by the pikes, but other than that, I've been doing pretty well with the skirmish fight so far. I have this Gothic Palatine defector well and surrounded, and I charged it with a Cav unit, so should be able to get that off the field relatively soon. And then I got another Cav unit into the remainder of this Germanic Warband, and I'm going to quickly follow it up, kill this Germanic Archer as well. A little bit of a mistake there, threw some Pila into the back of my Germanic Horsemen, not ideal, but main infantry line has gone well for me so far. I've definitely taken an advantage in this first set of engagements here. So pikes in the center, going to shoot or just start fighting with these other pikes, and going to follow up with a charge from the Gothic Palatine defectors from behind. Should be able to rout these pikes very easily, and that'll be good for me. And then crossbow shooting into the rest of his Germanic Archers, which have started to make their presence felt in the Cav fight, doing some damage to my cavalry over there. So I want to get them off the field very soon. Shooting in their flanks with their low armor should take them off the field very quickly. Now, he does have a free Cav unit over here, Noble Germanic Horseman, but only 17 men left in the unit. If this was Rome 2, I would have already pulled this Germanic Horseman out of the melee fight. But in this game, if you do that, it's not only defense that drops to 0, it's almost like health drops to 0. If you pull out with a Cav or Elephant in this game, as I said in the Elephant pull-through video that I made, it's disastrous. It's often better to just leave your Cav in a fight with spears or some unit that can actually kill them, because if you pull out, you're going to lose them way quicker than you would with their 247 health, just leaving them in combat. So, not going to pull out there, but I will lose that Cav engagement over there. And you can see he's trying to get his general around to my crossbow units, but I have pikes here, and I have another Gothic Palatine defector, and then I'm going to charge into it, or I was going to, but I saw that he routed. Not sure why I pulled the Germanic Horseman away. I should have actually followed that up. So, a little bit of a micro mistake there, and you can see General came back. I don't believe his gen is dead at this point, but I could be wrong. Actually, I think he probably is, considering that the wavering is happening in the background, but it doesn't really matter. Germanic Horseman going to close that fight out, and that'll be really good for me. A gen will be off the field, and there's not a whole lot left on the field for Flankzilla. Have another Germanic Horseman over on this flank that is in good position to start doing more damage, but you can see wavering at the moment, and now his Noble Germanic Horseman is going to break through, and that Cav fight isn't going to go well for me. But over on this side, going very, very well. Gothic Warband coming up the center, but it doesn't matter. I have plenty of swords and pikes here to tie them down while my crossbowmen do the damage. So you can see I'm going to brace these guys, or at least try to brace the Gothic Palatine defectors and get some shots in with the crossbows. Cav not going to be able to do enough damage there. They're going to rout from the field as well. And I'm in a really commanding position at this point in the battle. There's not a whole lot he can do. He can commit his Gothic Warband, but they will lose to Palatine defectors one-on-one, and I have pikes and crossbows to back him up. So this has gone very well for me. And remember, it is a best of one. I don't think I mentioned that yet. But whoever wins this fight will go on to the next round. That's typically what occurs in Flash tournaments. They're best of one until the final round. So whoever wins this will advance further into the tournament. Going well for me so far. My crossbows have just done so much damage, which really they shouldn't have. I mean, Flankzilla had the tools to deal with my crossbows, the much longer range and the better skirmishers, and he didn't really take advantage of those Germanic Archers, and he brought 4 of them, so that was a big mistake. Gothic Warband going into combat now, and they're just going to rout from the field, and at this point the only unit that can do any damage to me whatsoever is the Noble Germanic Horsemen, and I've got more than enough tools to deal with them. Still have lots of ammo left in my crossbows. I guess that is a difference between the crossbow units and the regular archers, is that you're not going to... You do more damage per volley with the crossbows, but you probably get a better fire rate with the Germanic Archers, and you definitely get a longer range. The Germanic Archers, just in general, are better for a skirmish-on-skirmish fight. So, basically going to take the field here. Pike's moving up, and there is one archer in the background, but they're both going to rout because the gen's dead, and they're taking the -9 morale penalty from the flaming arrows. I'll take the field, and that'll be your game. First game of North American Flash Tournament. Indypride will advance. So, let's talk about builds for a second. Like I said, typical build for German factions, which is half of the factions in this game, if not more. Gonna see either 8 Cav, it'd be 7 Germanic Horsemen probably, and 1 Cav General. Usually the Royal Psioni if you're bringing like the Ostrogoths. 3 or 4 Germanic Archers, 2 or 3 cheap Pikes. You don't need to bring the elites. The regular cheap Pikes are enough to deter the cavalry, which is all they're going to do. Blunt charges and prevent Cav from coming up the center. That's all you need them for, but they're very, very good at that. They don't have to do any killing whatsoever, and they can be worth it. And then a main line of Gothic Palatina Defectors, a main line of Gothic Warband, maybe an eclectic mix like my opponent Flankzilla brought here. I don't like the Germanic Band or the Germanic Warband a whole lot, but the Gothic Warband are super cost effective, very good unit. He brought a very good build except for the Cav. He had the Cav disadvantage, and on a map like Plains, in a game like Attila, that's a big problem. You can't have the Cav advantage, and later in the tournament, you're going to see what having a Cav disadvantage does. So, I will show you my next couple, or however many games I actually managed to advance through in the tournament, and then I'll show you the finals, whether I'm in it or not. You'll just have to watch and see. But it was a very good tournament. Lots of good games. A lot of the builds are going to be similar. I don't know if that'll make you guys bored or not. Hopefully not. I do think that Attila is quite skill-based at the moment. I do like the pace of the game. I like the skill that you have to take the field and win. But a lot of the builds, literally from Alans to Ostrogoths to Lombards to a lot of the other Germanic factions, are almost identical, which can be problematic because it means that the faction rosters aren't as diverse. You're not seeing a lot of new, interesting builds, but perhaps those will develop the longer multiplayer gets played. Hope you guys enjoyed Game 1. More content coming from the tournament very soon. See you all later. Indypride signing out.